They need to get up quite early. And probably very early, because it's a first-come, first-served basis. And basically, get to Buckingham Palace. Lots of tube stations will be closed. We're near St James's and Westminster. They will be closed. So I think you have to basically find out which is your nearest tube to where you want to go to. You either can go down the Mall, you can go to Trafalgar Square, then they turn right. If you imagine you're coming from Buckingham Palace, turn right down the past the Cenotaph and then into Parliament Square. So that is the procession route. It's 1.3 miles long. It's very different from what they had in 1953 when the Queen went for 5 miles round, had a spin round London. Well, it was a very slow spin round London at 4 miles an hour, because the 6 Windsor Greys can't go any quicker when pulling the state coach, because it is extremely heavy. Everything will happen at 4 miles an hour precisely in terms of the procession. So you need to get there early, find which tube station is available, bring an umbrella, because it will be damp.
Break it to us gently, Rupert. Come on. It's going to rain, isn't it, on Saturday?
Can absolutely sluice it down. No,
yes.
But what it does mean, there is supposed to be a flight past. And that could be cancelled, because if we've got low cloud over London, you can't suddenly have a whole lot of planes in formation flying over Buckingham Palace, because that could go a bit pear-shaped.
OK, well, let's definitely hope that doesn't happen. Talk us through the coaches, because there's a different coach going into the one coming out.
Yes, there's the first one is one that we got from Australia. The Imperial State Coach, I think it's called, and it came in the Diamond Jubilee year. And I never thought, when I was suddenly reading through this, that Australia were a hotbed of state coach makers. But they have got one, and it's got air conditioning in it, and it's very comfortable. Unfortunately, the big gold one that we see a bit later, that is not good. The Queen hated it when she went for that long walk, and you swing around in. I think they've tightened up the leather straps so you don't in this wonderful gold state coach. It's such an impressive looking thing, but it's not designed for comfort.
OK, so as soon as he is officially crowned king, he gets a little bit of a bumpy ride.
Which some people are expecting he might have got quite a long one, but it will be, and with the Queen, him and the Queen will be having a bumpy ride back, but not as bumpy as the Queen had it, because they've improved some of the suspension within the golden state coach. I mean, these are important considerations.
They are. I feel that this is an episode that Top Gear has failed to produce, but we're filling the need here.
Well, it's a sort of insightful way, understanding the aerodynamics of the state coach. But it will look, the people who are here late at night to see that rehearsal, I had some friends who... I've got some geeky friends who decided they wanted to come and see it 2 o'clock in the morning, and they said it was just spectacular. And a military friend of mine who's actually working on the logistics of it, he stood in the old War Office in the middle of the night, and he said the hairs on the back of my neck stood on end, because it probably even looked more spectacular under the street lights and everyone in their full military regalia. I'm not sure who stood in for the King and Queen, but there would have been people sort of playing those parts.
That job, that would be so spooky, wouldn't it? Do you know what? Jane's had a similar experience, haven't you? Because didn't you have to attend a rehearsal?
Yes, I did see. It was early in the morning. It was 5 a.m. from memory of the Queen Mother's funeral procession. And I agree with your friend. It was, in many ways, more moving and more stirring than the actual thing in daylight.
Yes, because you sort of see it going on, and you feel a bit naughty being there.
Slightly, but it's also the noise of the more or less silence, but just with the horse, you can hear the horses. It's intoxicating, actually.
It is, and it's an evocative sight. And there will be, there are 7,000... they say 7,000. My friend has told me, he assures me there are 6,431 service personnel.
To be precise.
To be precise, because everything is worked out to an nth degree, will be taking part, and they've all got they will be processing down it will just look a sea of colour, and all of them, everyone, walking in step. And you think they've got little microphones at various spots to make sure that everyone with a sort of metronomic beat in your ear, so they know the pace. Because sometimes when you're on a motorway, you get the traffic goes concertinas. Well, they don't need that to happen.
Something else we want to avoid, Rupert. You're filling me with fear about the things that could go completely belly up, but won't, so we can stop worrying. There was a rehearsal today, wasn't there, of the coronation, you believe?
The second time the King came along to get it right. Because he's got a lot to do. 4 changes of clothes, sit on different seats, say a lot. He's the centre, and he doesn't want to be pointed in the wrong place. So he came along and had another full, I think a reasonably full run-through of the actual service and the actual logistics of what will happen. Because, you know, he needs to get it right. And when you think the Queen, there were probably 5 television cameras when she saw it, and very few people were sort of huddled around various televisions around the world. They even had to fly the footage to Australia 22 hours later before it was shown. And you think now everyone is wanting an instant. There's more cameras than you can shake a stick at in there, and so the King doesn't want to make a mistake.
It's an Instagram coronation, and truly terrifying when you think of it in those terms, actually.
And just remind us of who will actually be inside the Abbey, apart from the royal family.
Lots of different people, less dukes than you. I've spoken to a few dukes who are a bit upset, but or just say, well, we understand.
What are they doing? Are they having a kind of duke-off?
Well,
they
I mean,
meet?
one of them is the Duke of Beaufort, but he's got about 200,000 people coming around his estate at the horse trials. So
he's all right.
He's all right.
We don't need to worry about him. What about the others?
Well, they're probably having a knees up in their castle or so wherever they live. So I think we'll be all right. We don't need to worry about them. So there's not as much ermine, but we've got British Empire medal winners. We've got people from all. Nick Cave's going to be in there.
Oh, we've talked about that, yeah.
I mean, which I must admit that struck me by surprise. And people like Lionel Richie, you know, again, but he's had a long-standing relationship with the King through the Prince's Trust, and just generally a wider range of the British public being able to get. But remember, there were 8,000 in there last time and only 2,000. So, as I say, there are disgruntled MPs' wives, disgruntled lords' wives, and other parts of other various members. So there's members of the aristocracy harumphing over their coronation chicken and coronation quiche.
Well, if they want to stay upmarket, they can stick with Times Radio and listen to it here.
Well, I know they do.